Chapter 43, Zheng Jinbao's Fear. Inside the room, Li Chang'an took out the turtle spirit fruit. He stared at the profound water turtle and gave it a serious warning. This turtle spirit fruit is extremely special, even among Tier 1 top-grade spiritual medicines. Its medicinal power is immense. You should swallow a portion of it first and focus on its refinement. The little profound water turtle nodded repeatedly. Its large eyes stared at the turtle spirit fruit, conveying a sense of longing. Over the next few days, with Li Chang'an's help, the little profound water turtle cautiously consumed the entire turtle spirit fruit. It couldn't refine all of the medicinal power. Most of it settled throughout its body, to be released slowly as it grew. During this time, Chu Danyu came to visit. He shared all sorts of rumors from the marketplace. "Big brother, you need to prepare as soon as possible. If things go south, just run. I've already heard the rumors. For now, everything should be fine." Li Chang'an's expression was calm as he reassured him. After their conversation, Chu Danyu left fraught with worry. Afterward, Li Chang'an went to the marketplace's trading area. He didn't want to show favoritism, so he bought some treasures suitable for an earth element spirit beast's growth and fed them all to Dawang. "You've worked hard these past few days." Li Chang'an patted Dawang's head. As the family's #1 fighting force, Dawang had been diligent and uncomplaining, working tirelessly with almost no rest. "Keep an eye on Zheng Jinbao. Let me know the moment he leaves the marketplace," Li Chang'an instructed him. Over the past few days, Zheng Jinbao had grown increasingly agitated. Why isn't Wei Sen back yet? His brows were tightly furrowed, and his expression was grim. It was as if Wei Sen had vanished from the face of the earth. There was no news of him whatsoever. Could he really have failed? The more Zheng Jinbao thought about it, the more anxious he became. Finally, he couldn't bear it any longer. He secretly contacted another tribulation cultivator from Black Wind Mountain to ask about Wei Sen. But the news he received left him deeply unsettled. "What? You're saying Wei Sen never returned to Black Wind Mountain, hasn't contacted any of you, and even your big master doesn't know where he went?" Zheng Jinbao's face fell. A terrible suspicion began to form in his mind. Could Wei Sen be dead? But how could Li Chang'an possibly have the ability to deal with Wei Sen? Has that brat been hiding his true strength all this time? Zheng Jinbao took several deep breaths, a chill crawling up his spine. In that moment, he was suddenly seized by a sense of dread. Damn it, why did I ever provoke him in the first place? Zheng Jinbao glanced in the direction of Li Chang'an's residence, the fear in his heart spreading uncontrollably. Ultimately, he couldn't sit still any longer. He hurried out the door, ran to the center of the marketplace, and stopped in front of a residence. "Second young master, Zheng Jinbao requests an audience," he called out, his heart pounding with anxiety. Before long, the courtyard gate opened. "Come in." A young man's voice called out from deep within the courtyard. Hearing the voice, Zheng Jinbao breathed a sigh of relief. He entered the courtyard and saw the person who had spoken. The man wore a green robe and was handsome and charismatic. His strength was also extraordinary. He was the rarely seen second young master of the Zheng family. "Zheng Lingfeng." "Zheng Jinbao, what is it?" He glanced indifferently at Zheng Jinbao. Zheng Jinbao hurriedly bowed, presented a storage pouch, and said humbly, "I beg you to save me, second young master." "What's wrong? Did you do something to displease Zheng Qingqing?" "No, it's because." Zheng Jinbao held nothing back, explaining his dispute with Li Chang'an in full detail. After listening, Zheng Lingfeng gave a faint smile. He wasn't angry that Zheng Jinbao had colluded with Black Wind Mountain. Instead, he asked, "You are a man of the Zheng family, yet you're afraid of a mere loose cultivator of low status. But that Li Chang'an is just too strange. I suspect he's the one who killed the tribulation cultivators that went missing before." "So you're scared?" Zheng Lingfeng shook his head slightly, appearing quite disappointed. Zheng Jinbao opened his mouth, unsure how to respond. Just then, Zheng Lingfeng lightly slapped the storage pouch at his waist, and a black puppet instantly appeared beside him. "Fine, for the sake of these spirit stones, you can borrow this shadow-chasing puppet for now. Return it to me after you've killed Li Chang'an." Hearing this, Zheng Jinbao was overjoyed. "Thank you, second young master. Thank you, second young master." He thanked him repeatedly, filled with delighted surprise. This shadow-chasing puppet was exceptionally powerful, comparable to an expert at the Qi refining peak. Furthermore, it required no control. As long as it memorized an enemy's aura, it would attack on its own until the target was completely annihilated. Right? I suspect Li Chang'an's residence is protected by an array. Try to wait until he leaves before you make your move. Yes. Zhang Jinbao nodded eagerly. Time flew by. Before he knew it, 10 months had passed. During this time, Zhang Jinbao never found a suitable opportunity to strike. Li Chang'an hardly ever appeared, only leaving his home a few times to purchase treasures for raising the profound water turtle. Under his dedicated cultivation, where no expense was spared, the profound water turtle grew rapidly, its aura growing stronger almost day by day. The advantages of its earth-grade bloodline were fully displayed during its growth. Li Chang'an couldn't help but marvel, its growth rate is truly astonishing. Compared to the profound water turtle, Dahuang's growth was at a snail's pace. Li Chang'an's own cultivation speed was even slower than that. In just 10 short months, the profound water turtle's aura had already approached the peak of the Tier 1 early stage. Don't rush your breakthrough. Settle for a few more days to ensure there are no hidden dangers, Li Chang'an patiently instructed the profound water turtle. He had high hopes for this spirit beast, and had to ensure that it took every step with absolute stability. 4 months later, the profound water turtle's strength had grown to the absolute limit of the Tier 1 early stage. It could no longer be suppressed. Under the protection of Li Chang'an and Dahuang, it successfully broke through its realm, becoming a Tier 1 middle stage spirit beast. It only took a year and 2 months to break through to the Tier 1 middle stage. That's equivalent to a human race cultivator going from immortal to the chi refining 4th layer. Truly incredible. The profound water turtle's growth rate made even its master, Li Chang'an, feel envious. Although it was partly due to Li Chang'an sparing no expense and using a vast amount of treasures, its own innate aptitude could not be ignored. Little one, you've eaten so many of my spirit stones. Now it's time for you to give something back. The thought of all the spirit stones he had spent during this period made Li Chang'an's heart ache in secret. His net worth had shrunk considerably. But as long as the effect of its borrowing technique talent met his expectations, it would all be worth it. Before long, the profound water turtle's aura stabilized as it consolidated its new realm. It looked at Li Chang'an with affection in its eyes. It immediately used its borrowing technique talent. Gentle water element magical power slowly flowed into Li Chang'an's meridians, causing his aura to strengthen continuously. Not bad. Li Chang'an felt the change within himself and nodded slightly. After just a few breaths, his strength rose from the chi refining 4th layer to the chi refining 5th layer. And it was still rising. It barely reached the chi refining 6th layer before it slowly came to a stop. My current strength should be considered top tier within the middle stage of chi refining. Even though it's temporary, it's still quite impressive, especially since this magic causes no harm to my body. Li Chang'an had a smile on his face. He was extremely satisfied with this borrowing technique. After all, in the cultivation immortality realm, most methods for temporarily boosting one's strength were harmful to a cultivator's body. Take the Zhang family's explosive spirit pill, for example. But the profound water turtle's borrowing technique was incredibly gentle. He could use it whenever he wanted without worrying about any side effects. In this state, can I draw a Tier 1 top-grade talisman? Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. Then he sat down at his desk, took out talisman paper, spiritual ink, and a talisman brush, and began to try. Chapter 44, Breakthrough Top-Grade Talisman. Li Chang'an sat cross-legged at his desk, his focus absolute. He held a talisman brush. Slowly, he painted one intricate pattern after another onto the talisman paper. The entire room was silent, so quiet he could hear his own breathing. Suddenly, Li Chang'an's brow furrowed and he stopped painting. It's a failure. A wisp of green smoke drifted up from the talisman paper, and the patterns painted on it slowly lost their spiritual energy. The spiritual power dissipated. It had become a worthless piece of paper. This attempt was a complete failure. He had only finished less than 20% of the talisman. This time, my magical power was still difficult to sustain. Although the profound water turtle can lend me power through the borrowing technique, its own magical power isn't deep enough. Li Chang'an stared at the talisman paper, silently reflecting on his failure. In the end, it was still a problem of magical power. Before, to cope with insufficient magical power, he would prepare a few recovery elixir pills in his mouth ahead of time. However, even the tiny movement of swallowing the pills would distract him, and the slightest carelessness could lead to an error in the painting process. But now he had the profound water turtle. Perhaps he wouldn't have to do that anymore. I can have the profound water turtle swallow the elixir pills to restore its magical power, and then it can lend that power to me. Chang'an mused. The plan seemed feasible. He had the profound water turtle cancel its borrowing technique talent and swallow some magical power recovery elixir pills. The man and the turtle rested for about an hour. Both recovered to their peak condition. Afterward, Chang'an placed more elixir pills and water element treasures in front of the profound water turtle. He instructed it, do your best to keep your magical power at its peak. If it drops even a little, swallow an elixir pill or a treasure to recover. The profound water turtle was very intelligent. It nodded repeatedly, showing that it understood. All right, let's try again. Chang'an took a deep breath. Gripping his talisman brush, he tried again. The ink-soaked brush tip traveled slowly across the talisman paper, leaving behind a series of profound patterns. Gradually, Chang'an's face began to pale, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. An indescribable exhaustion slowly welled up inside him, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. Suddenly, the hand holding the brush faltered. PFFD. A wisp of green smoke rose from the talisman paper. Another failure. Chang'an frowned, looking at the talisman beneath his brush. This attempt was more complete than the last. He had finished about half of it. This time, my magical power was barely enough to sustain the process, and my spiritual power was sufficient. Although I'm tired, I haven't reached my limit. Chang'an thought to himself, recalling the process of painting the talisman. The reason I failed is probably a lack of proficiency. He already knew the contents of the Jade scroll regarding the legacy of Tier 1 top-grade talismans by heart. But after all, he had only tried twice. It was normal to fail. Many geniuses only appear brilliant on the surface. Who knows how many times they've failed behind the scenes? Can't be rushed, I have to take it slow. Chang'an felt calm. The profound sword talisman I tried to paint these last 2 times is an offensive talisman. Maybe I should try an escape-type one, the Wind Shadow Talisman. The Wind Shadow Talisman was the high-tier replacement for the low-grade Wind Speed Talisman and the middle-grade Wind Escape Talisman. Since Chang'an often painted talismans for escaping, he was particularly proficient with these 2 types. He could practically paint them with his eyes closed. My proficiency with this type of escape talisman far exceeds that of any other. Chang'an thought for a moment and came up with a plan. He didn't rush. He continued to adjust his condition, resting with the profound water turtle for about 4 hours. Afterward, he entered the borrowed state, held his talisman brush, and began to paint slowly. This time, the process went exceptionally smoothly. His movements were as fluid as flowing water, handled with perfect ease. The patterns on the talisman paper grew increasingly complete. Before long, a look of joy spread across Chang'an's face. He set down his talisman brush and looked at the completed talisman on his desk. My talisman art has finally broken through. This Wind Shadow Talisman was absolutely perfect. It didn't have the slightest flaw. This meant his talisman art had officially advanced, and he was now a Tier 1 top-grade talisman master. This borrowing technique is truly incredible. It wasn't a waste to spend so many spirit stones raising the profound water turtle. Chang'an beamed, his mood excellent. After all, the skill to create Tier 1 top-grade talismans was the absolute best in Chang'an marketplace. There wasn't a single Tier 2 talisman master in the entire Chang'an marketplace. After all, if someone had Tier 2 skills, why would they stay in the marketplace? It was much easier to earn spirit stones in Yellow Crane Immortal City. Besides, painting a Tier 2 talisman required an even greater amount of magical power, something most cultivators in the late stage of chi refining could hardly sustain. A Tier 1 top-grade talisman master, even the Zhang family would have to treat someone like that with respect. A wave of emotion suddenly washed over Chang'an. Without even realizing it, he had come this far. His current achievements were something his former self would never have dared to imagine. The path ahead is still long, I can't get arrogant. Li Chang'an silently admonished himself. A top-grade talisman master. It was just a small step on his immortal path. First, I need to consolidate my skill with top-grade talismans and see what my success rate is. Li Chang'an rested for a moment, then tried again. His next 2 attempts at talisman painting both ended in failure. His expression remained unchanged. He had expected as much. For the next few days, Li Chang'an practiced nonstop. He failed many times, using up a great deal of talisman paper and spiritual ink. Overall, his success rate for painting Tier 1 top-grade talismans was about 30%. It wasn't very high, but as his proficiency grew, the success rate was steadily increasing. With a bit more practice, my success rate should stabilize at over 50%. Li Chang'an was very confident. He could feel his skills improving. Through his constant practice, he discovered not only were his skills improving, but he and the turtle were also becoming more synchronized. This is a good thing. Li Chang'an smiled. The greater the rapport between a spirit beast and its master, the better. Better rapport led to closer bond. He had once heard some spirit beasts had terrible relationships with their masters. They were often beaten and cursed, causing them to harbor deep resentment. Eventually, they would even risk the backlash from their spirit contract to kill or injure their masters. The profound water turtle in Dawang would never do something like that. Li Chang'an considered himself to be quite good to his 2 spirit beasts, certainly not to the point where they would develop resentment. A few more days passed. Li Chang'an temporarily stopped his talisman painting. Just as he had predicted, his success rate for painting Tier 1 top-grade talismans had stabilized at over 50%. This success rate is good enough for now. In the future, I'll still need to slowly polish my talisman art. Li Chang'an put away his talisman painting tools. Now, to see if I can make a breakthrough in my puppetry skill. With a single thought, a large pile of materials for crafting puppet components appeared before him. Humanoid puppets are quite difficult to make. For now, I'll start with something simpler. Just as before, Li Chang'an planned to start with the basics. He decided to craft a turtle puppet that excelled at defense. The structure of a turtle puppet isn't complex. The main issue is its mobility. Li Chang'an began to ponder. Combining the knowledge from the top-grade puppet legacy, he gradually formed a detailed design in his mind. After meditating for the time it takes an incense stick to burn, he selected his materials and began to work. The difficulty of crafting a top-grade puppet far surpassed that of a middle-grade puppet. Li Chang'an failed several times just trying to craft the most basic components. Chapter 45. Chapter 45. Puppet materials delivered to the door. That's strange. The patterns on this component are already carved, so why isn't it conducting magical power? Li Chang'an was puzzled, his face a mask of confusion. Where did I go wrong? He tinkered with the component for a while before finally discovering his mistake and promptly correcting it. Without realizing it, more than half a day had passed. Li Chang'an had only successfully made 3 components. Meanwhile, a large pile of scrap treasure materials had already formed beside him. He felt a pang of regret for the lost spirit stones, but he didn't give up. As long as I succeed, any amount of wasted material is worth it. Li Chang'an glanced at the scrap materials, then gathered his thoughts, focused his concentration, and continued crafting the remaining components. Time flew by, and a few more days passed. After scrapping a vast amount of treasure materials, a turtle puppet half a man's height finally took shape. This puppet barely crosses the threshold of a Tier 1 top-grade puppet, I suppose. Li Chang'an looked at the puppet, his brow furrowed in thought. He wasn't entirely satisfied. He wasn't dissatisfied with his own skills. After all, the successful creation of this turtle puppet meant his skills had reached the level of a Tier 1 top-grade puppet master. It was just that the turtle puppet's defensive capabilities didn't meet his expectations. It could barely block Dawang's attacks, but not for long. If the assault continued for any length of time, cracks would appear on its outer shell, and it would begin to fall apart. It's a problem with the puppet materials. I need to find some treasure materials specifically designed for making defense puppets. Li Chang'an pondered. The thought of materials made his heart ache. He would have to spend a lot more spirit stones. However, as long as the puppet he created could perfectly withstand the attacks of a late-stage chi refining cultivator, it would all be worth it. Before he knew it, it was already midnight. The divination appeared before Li Chang'an's eyes as usual. Divination refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. Zhang Jinbao will deploy a shadow-chasing puppet in an attempt to eliminate you completely, but the puppet will ultimately be trapped and fall into your hands. A shadow-chasing puppet. Li Chang'an was surprised, his eyes scanning the contents of the divination. He had heard of this type of puppet. They say this kind of puppet doesn't require a controller. It can actively hunt its target based on their aura. Even though it's only a Tier 1 puppet, only a puppet master at Tier 2 or higher can create one. The puppet-making knowledge Li Chang'an had inherited contained no instructions for creating such a puppet. This type of puppet wasn't sold in the marketplace or the black market either. That was why he was so surprised. Where did Zhang Jinbao get this shadow-chasing puppet? Could he have gotten it from within the Zhang family? Li Chang'an thought for a moment. Forget it, no matter where he got it, once it enters my courtyard, it's mine. He immediately began to prepare. Even though the divination was auspicious, he couldn't afford to be careless. After all, the shadow-chasing puppet was notorious. Since it hunts based on aura, my top-grade illusion body talisman will come in handy. The illusion body talisman was the higher-tier version of the middle-grade memory talisman. It could conjure not only an illusionary figure, but an illusionary aura as well. Meanwhile, outside Li Chang'an's residence, Zhang Jinbao gritted his teeth, glaring at the courtyard gate. What the hell is wrong with that damn Li Chang'an? Is he a bloody turtle or something? He hadn't found an opportunity yet, so he still hadn't been able to use the shadow-chasing puppet. After all, the shadow-chasing puppet wasn't his. Over the past few days, Zhang Lingfeng had already urged him twice to return the puppet as soon as possible. No, I can't wait any longer. I'll make my move tonight. Zhang Jinbao made up his mind. He spent a large sum of spirit stone to purchase 10 breaking charms. Any more would have been useless, as there was a limit to how much the power of these talismans could be stacked. With the combined power of this many breaking charms, I can easily shatter even a Tier 1 top-grade array. Zhang Jinbao unceremoniously stuffed the talismans onto the shadow-chasing puppet. Afterward, he took out a hoe and several baskets. These were items Li Chang'an had used back when he tended the Zhang family's spirit field. They still carried Li Chang'an's qi. Memorize this person's qi, kill him. Zhang Jinbao ordered the shadow-chasing puppet. The shadow-chasing puppet gave a stiff nod. With a flicker of its body, it shot straight toward Li Chang'an's small courtyard. Under Zhang Jinbao's expectant gaze, it leaped directly into the courtyard. At that very moment, Li Chang'an sensed a fluctuation in the array. It's here. His true self was already hidden underground. He had left only a puppet body in the courtyard. The shadow-chasing puppet was now trapped inside the array. The 10 breaking charms on its body activated in unison, erupting in a brilliant golden light. Countless burning golden patterns coalesced into a giant golden hand that clawed at the surrounding void. Its power was terrifying, as if it would completely shred the entire cloud mist-hidden killing array. Li Chang'an didn't just stand by and watch. He could faintly sense the array was nearing its limit. Strike! He let out a cold shout. The cyan light sword shot from its sheath, transforming into a phantom image that instantly slashed toward the giant golden hand. Dahuang was also casting magic, weakening the giant hand's power. At the same time, the shadow-chasing puppet let out a roar and charged straight for Li Chang'an's puppet body. Li Chang'an's figure flickered, and he threw out an illusion body talisman. An illusory body instantly appeared in his place. Boom! The shadow-chasing puppet struck the illusion, causing it to merely ripple. It didn't see through the deception and continued its attack. This puppet has no one controlling it, so it's a bit stupid, after all. It's easy to deal with as long as you prepare the right countermeasures. After a moment, the shadow-chasing puppet finally realized something was wrong. It changed direction and resumed its pursuit of Li Chang'an's puppet body. But Li Chang'an kept throwing out one illusion body talisman after another, confusing it and draining its magical power. Before long, the giant golden hand formed from the 10 breaking charms dissipated. The array restabilized. After another incense stick's worth of time had passed, the shadow-chasing puppet's attacks began to slow down. Its magical power was severely depleted with no way to replenish it, and it grew weaker and weaker. Finally, the shadowless net descended from the sky. Trapped within it, the puppet could no longer attack, left completely at Li Chang'an's mercy. Can I make this thing work for me? With a thought, Li Chang'an erased the mark Zhang Jinbao had left on the puppet. Afterward, he attempted its refinement, but he was unable to leave his own mark on it. Furthermore, the puppet remained extremely aggressive toward him, letting out a roar every now and then. Strange, could there be some other control method? Li Chang'an pondered for a long time. His puppet-making skills were already considerable, yet he was completely unable to control this puppet. Every attempt ended in failure. In the end, he was forced to give up. Fine, if I can't use it, I'll just dismantle it for materials. Li Chang'an began at once. He was short on materials anyway, and the materials used to make this puppet were of excellent quality. Outside, Zhang Jinbao was still waiting anxiously. Why isn't there any noise? Did it fail? Chapter 46, The Shock of the Zhang Family Disciple. The next day, in the early morning, Li Chang'an had finished disassembling the shadow-chasing puppet. He studied the spirit patterns on the materials for a while and found them far too complex. I can understand the spirit patterns on the outermost parts, but the deeper ones are too difficult. The patterns in the core region are especially intricate. Could this be why I can't control it? Li Chang'an mused. Ultimately, to be on the safe side, he placed the puppet's core components into a separate storage pouch. He wiped the spirit patterns from some of the external materials, returning them to a state where they could be inscribed upon again. If I want to craft a high-quality defense puppet, I still don't have enough materials. I'll have to make a trip to the black market. Li Chang'an thought to himself. He didn't leave right away. Instead, he waited until night. Only after his divination refreshed and showed a neutral result did he use Earth Escape to leave. Before long, he had bought enough puppet materials and returned to the marketplace. For the next few days, I'll focus on building this defense puppet. More than 10 days later, before Li Chang'an stood a pitch-black puppet, roughly the same size as him. This was the Tier 1 top-grade defense puppet he had personally crafted after countless failures. This puppet's quality is excellent, much better than the turtle puppet. It can consistently withstand Da Wang's attacks. Da Wang's strength was equivalent to a late stage of Qi refining human race cultivator. Li Chang'an was very satisfied with this. Although this puppet couldn't be called high quality, it was considered exceptionally good among ordinary Tier 1 top-grade puppets. In addition, Li Chang'an had also created a top-grade puppet that specialized in speed. This puppet was mainly for tracking enemies. After all, he couldn't always rely on Da Wang. There was only one of it, and it couldn't be in two places at once. I have a defense puppet and a speed puppet now. All that's missing is an attack puppet. No rush for now, I should save some spirit stones. Li Chang'an mused. For offense, he could temporarily make do with top-grade talismans. Meanwhile, inside the secret realm, Su Fugui was facing the greatest danger of his life. The danger came not from the secret realm itself, but from other human race cultivators. A group of tribulation cultivators had blocked the path for him and his companions. A few plump lambs from the early stage of Qi refining. The regular members of this group of tribulation cultivators weren't strong, but their leader had a cultivation at the Qi refining fourth layer. His strength alone was enough to crush Su Fugui and the others. Fugui, what should we do? His companions looked panicked. I don't know either. Su Fugui looked just as flustered and terrified. However, deep down, he remained calm, secretly tightening his grip on a talisman. Brother Li said this talisman was for killing enemies. Su Fugui's heart pounded with nervousness. Can this talisman really kill an expert at the Qi refining fourth layer? Up ahead, seeing how panicked Su Fugui and his group were, the tribulation cultivator leader relaxed and sneered. Hand over all your valuables, and I might consider letting you. He hadn't even finished his sentence when a golden light suddenly flashed before him. A middle-grade talisman, the golden saber talisman. This is bad. The tribulation cultivator leader's face changed drastically. The terrifying golden gleam arrived in an instant, surging with spiritual power, and slashed into him. Slash. His body shuddered. He was sliced in two, and his body collapsed to the ground in two halves. It all happened too fast. Only then did the other tribulation cultivators react. Watch out, fall back. Their faces were filled with terror as they tried to retreat. But in the next instant, several more flashes of golden light erupted. Like dazzling golden blades, they tore through the air with unparalleled ferocity, instantly enveloping the entire group of tribulation cultivators. Aya! A few blood-curdling screams echoed from within the golden light, and then there was silence. A moment later, the golden light dissipated. There were no living people left, only a pile of mangled flesh and blood. These talismans, their power is immense. Su Fugui was shaken to the core, his hands trembling slightly. Beside him, his companions were already too stunned to speak. They stood frozen in place, staring blankly at the corpses of the tribulation cultivators. After a long moment, one of them finally spoke. His mouth hung open as he looked at Su Fugui in disbelief. Fugui, where did you get the spirit stones to afford so many middle-grade talismans? Just now, Su Fugui had been throwing middle-grade talismans around as if they were free, which had truly shocked him. What middle-grade talismans? Weren't those low-grade talismans I used? Hearing this, Su Fugui began to play dumb. He knew Chang'an didn't want to be exposed, so he had already prepared an excuse to handle his companions. You do know. The man was flabbergasted. He pointed at the gory remains, his finger trembling slightly. The golden saber talismans you just used are one of the most destructive types of middle-grade talismans. What? Su Fugui deliberately put on a shocked expression. His mouth fell open as he stared blankly at the bloody scene. You're telling me those talismans I found in a cave dwelling were actually middle-grade talismans? You found all these talismans? His companions were all dumbfounded, finding it hard to believe. At that moment Su Fugui urged them, enough talk, let's get out of here. Right, let's leave the secret realm first. That evening, Su Fugui and his group finally returned to the marketplace. Fugui, thank you for what you did back there. Recalling their earlier encounter, everyone was still terrified. They thanked him, said their goodbyes, and went their separate ways. Although they felt there was something suspicious about the origin of Su Fugui's talisman, they didn't press the issue. After all, everyone had their own secrets. I think I've kept it under wraps, Su Fugui thought to himself as he watched the others leave. What Su Fugui didn't know was that one of his companions was now rushing toward the center of the marketplace. The man's surname was Zheng, and his name was Zheng Ming. He was a disciple of the Zheng family. Because his talent was too poor, his spiritual root was merely an inferior spirit root. The Zheng family had no intention of cultivating him. They only required him to take several concubines and have many children to spread the family's bloodline. To put it bluntly, they were using him as a tool for propagating their lineage. But he was not resigned to this fate. Was a life of debauchery, surrounded by wives and concubines, what he truly wanted? His heart was set on the immortal Tao, so he joined Su Fugui's group of loose cultivators, venturing into secret realms with them in search of opportunities. At this moment, the reason Zheng Ming was rushing toward the center of the marketplace was to inform Zheng Qingqing of something. Those middle-grade talismans Su Fugui had were most likely given to him by his brother Li Chang'an. Li Chang'an probably became a middle-grade talisman master long ago and has just been hiding it. The thought alone shocked Zheng Ming. To become a middle-grade talisman master so quickly meant he had a powerful talent for the Tao of talismans. He was worth recruiting into the Zheng family. I have to tell the young miss this news right away. Maybe she'll reward me with some treasure. He hurried to the outside of Zheng Qingqing's residence and knocked on the courtyard gate. Then he called out urgently, "Young miss, I have something important to report." Chapter 47, The Young Miss Pays a Visit. Don't be anxious, take your time and tell me what happened, Zheng Qingqing said with a gentle smile. Zheng Ming took a deep breath. He then began to recount what he had experienced in the secret realm. When he mentioned that Su Fugui had used a large number of middle-grade talismans, Zheng Qingqing paused for a moment, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Are you suggesting that Li Chang'an gave him those talismans? Zheng Ming faltered. Before he could even voice his own suspicion, Zheng Qingqing had already said it aloud. Yes, my lady, I believe that's what happened. He nodded and continued speaking. I've known Su Fugui for a long time. He has no special skills, nor has he had any great fortuitous encounters. He's even been scammed a few times buying secret realm treasure chests. The man is dirt poor. There's no way he could afford so many middle-grade talismans. All right, I understand. Zhang Qingqing gave a slight nod, lost in thought. A moment later, she rewarded Zhang Ming with several bottles of elixir pills and a low-grade magical artifact. I know you're not content with a life of mediocrity, which is why you venture out seeking opportunities. But the world outside is far crueler than it is within the family. You must be extra careful. Thank you, my lady. Zhang Ming was ecstatic, thanking her profusely. The bottles of elixir pills were already what he had been hoping for. The magical artifact was an unexpected, welcome surprise. He then took his rewards and left, beaming with delight. Zhang Qingqing glanced in the direction of Li Chang'an's residence, her eyes as clear as still water. I had assumed that without a complete talismanic inheritance, Li Chang'an would eventually come to me seeking one. But what Zhang Ming had just described made one thing clear to her. Li Chang'an's secrets ran deeper than she had imagined. I can't believe he's already a middle-grade talisman master. Zhang Qingqing let out a soft sigh, calming the surprise in her heart. This Li Chang'an always managed to exceed her expectations. He repeatedly caused her to misjudge the situation. Beside her, Zhang Linger found this hard to believe. She blinked her large eyes, a hint of confusion on her face. Sister Qingqing, why do you assume he's a middle-grade talisman master? Couldn't he have just bought those middle-grade talismans? Or what if Su Fugui was just lucky? I plan to go ask him. Zhang Qingqing stood up, tidied her hair and prepared to go out. She glanced at Zhang Linger and asked with a smile, Linger, would you like to come with me? Zhang Linger's expression shifted. She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. Sister Qingqing, I think I'll stay here. It doesn't have anything to do with me anyway. Very well, you can focus on your cultivation. Zhang Qingqing's tone was gentle. She didn't press the issue. At that moment, two guests arrived at Li Chang'an's residence. One of them was Zhang Jinbao. His visit was a genuine surprise to Li Chang'an. Li Chang'an didn't recognize the other person. Steward Zhang, and this is? He asked, looking at the young cultivator beside Zhang Jinbao. Zhang Jinbao forced a smile and made the introduction. This is young master Zhang Lingfeng. He's also one of the supervisors of the Qinghe marketplace, though he usually focuses on his cultivation and rarely appears in public. Ah, the second young master. Li Chang'an understood at once, guessing the origin of the shadow-chasing puppet. Within the Zhang family, the younger generation was ranked not by age, but by talent and strength. Therefore, Zhang Lingfeng and Zhang Qingqing were not blood-related siblings. He was called the second young master because his talent and strength were second only to Zhang Qingqing, placing him second in rank among the younger generation. May I ask what brings you two here today? We're here about Zhang Jinbao. Zhang Lingfeng said bluntly, his tone cold. Beside him, Zhang Jinbao shuddered. More than 10 days ago, that shadow-chasing puppet had entered Li Chang'an's courtyard and never came out. At the time, he had felt as if he'd been plunged into an abyss. He knew the puppet must have fallen into Li Chang'an's hands. But there was nothing he could do. He didn't dare ask Li Chang'an to return it, nor could he bring himself to tell Zhang Lingfeng the truth. His only option was to make inquiries everywhere, intending to buy a new shadow-chasing puppet to replace it, no matter the cost. However, no shadow-chasing puppets were for sale in either the regular marketplace or the black market. Left with no choice, he had to ask someone to make inquiries in Yellow Crane Immortal City. But before any news came back from the Immortal City, Zhang Lingfeng had shown up, demanding the shadow-chasing puppet back. In the end, unable to hide it any longer, he was forced to confess the truth. What a useless oaf. Zhang Lingfeng was furious when he learned the truth. After that, he had dragged Zhang Jinbao directly to Li Chang'an. Li Chang'an, I hear you've had some conflict with Zhang Jinbao. Conflict? Li Chang'an looked surprised. He paused to think for a moment, then said as if just remembering, that was all years ago. It wasn't a major conflict, and Steward Zhang and I reconciled long ago. Is that so? Zhang Lingfeng shot a cold glance at Zhang Jinbao. Zhang Jinbao kept his head down, his heart pounding with fear. Li Chang'an continued, yes, in fact, Steward Zhang has taken great care of me over the years, treating me like one of his own. I'd long forgotten any past unpleasantness. Hearing this, Zhang Lingfeng frowned. He didn't beat around the bush, saying coldly, if that's the case, then return my shadow-chasing puppet. What puppet? Li Chang'an asked, his face a mask of confusion. He already had his story prepared. However, before he could continue, a pleasant voice sounded from the doorway. The shadow-chasing puppet is one of the protective treasures the patriarch gifted to him. The puppet can track enemies by their qi. Zhang Qingqing appeared at the doorway, a smile gracing her features. Li Chang'an immediately clasped his hands in greeting. Greetings, my lady. Zhang Qingqing nodded slightly, then walked into the courtyard and glanced at Zhang Lingfeng. Her gaze was gentle. It didn't seem particularly intimidating. But Zhang Lingfeng's imposing aura immediately diminished, and his voice became much quieter. Sister Qingqing. Lingfeng, Taoist Li is a friend of mine. You are not to make things difficult for him. But Zhang Lingfeng gritted his teeth, wanting to say more. But faced with Zhang Qingqing's gaze, he couldn't get the words out. In the end, he could only back down. No matter how unwilling he felt, he had no choice but to leave with Zhang Jinbao. After they left, Li Chang'an clasped his hands toward Zhang Qingqing in thanks. Thank you, my lady. It was a small matter. Zhang Qingqing chuckled softly. She was aware of the history between Li Chang'an and Zhang Jinbao. Given the scene today, she didn't need to be told the details. She could already guess what had happened. Taoist Li, if you truly wish to thank me, then become an honored guest elder of my Zhang family. This, Li Chang'an was taken aback. But my talisman art. There's no need to hide it any longer, Taoist Li. Zhang Qingqing smiled gently and recounted what had happened in the secret realm. After hearing her explanation, Li Chang'an understood. So that's how it was. It's only my middle-grade talisman art, he thought. It's no great loss to have that exposed. Besides, I've already mastered top-grade talisman art. Considering the timeline, mastering middle-grade skills at this point was a little fast, but still believable. As for Zhang Qingqing's offer to become an honored guest elder, Li Chang'an didn't give it much thought before politely declining. My lady, I am currently focused solely on cultivation, and am truly unwilling to divert my energy to other matters. Taoist Li, there's no need to refuse so hastily. Zhang Qingqing said in a gentle voice. The cultivation technique you practice is just the most common evergreen technique, is it not? Chapter 48, A New Favor. Zhang Qingqing stated her conditions. As long as Li Chang'an was willing to become an honored guest elder, she would help him enter the Zhang family's library and let him choose any wood attribute cultivation technique he wanted. The evergreen technique Li Chang'an was currently cultivating was simply too common. Among low-grade techniques, it was considered second-rate, not much better than an inferior-grade technique. It didn't help his cultivation much and was even holding him back. If he could obtain a better cultivation technique, his efficiency at absorbing spiritual power would increase greatly, and his cultivation speed would also quicken. The Zhang family's library should have middle-grade wood attribute cultivation techniques. Li Chang'an mused. He had to admit he was indeed tempted. But he still refused. Thank you for your kind offer, young lady, but I am truly incapable of taking on the duties of an honored guest elder. Since Taoist Li is unwilling, I won't insist. Zhang Qingqing's smile was radiant, and her tone remained gentle. She had expected this. Her purpose in coming here today wasn't truly to make Li Chang'an an honored guest elder, but to discuss a business deal. Taoist Li, I was wondering, how many middle-grade talismans can you create each month? Well, Li Chang'an thought for a moment before replying, my magical power is a bit weak at the moment, so I can't make very many. After some discussion, Zhang Qingqing proposed a deal. From now on, Li Chang'an would provide the Zhang family with a steady supply of middle-grade talismans each month. In return, the Zhang family would pay him the market price. This was equivalent to Li Chang'an having a fixed sales channel. Of course, he wouldn't refuse. Before signing the contract, to prove his talisman painting ability, he drew a middle-grade wind escape talisman right in front of Zhang Qingqing. Afterward, the two of them signed a contract. The contract's restrictions on Li Chang'an were very loose. Even if he couldn't provide the talismans on time, it wouldn't be a big deal, and he could unilaterally break the contract at any time. This left him very satisfied. Now that the spirit contract is formed, I won't disturb you any longer, Taoist Li. Zhang Qingqing gave a charming smile, put away the spirit contract and took her leave. After returning, she handed the wind escape talisman to Zhang Linger. Linger, Li Chang'an's talisman art has indeed broken through. He's a middle-grade talisman master now. He actually broke through. Zhang Linger was surprised, staring at the wind-escape talisman. In any case, skills like this couldn't be faked. Zhang Qingqing smiled. Linger, if you're looking for someone to spend your life with, Li Chang'an is actually a very good choice. But he ultimately lacks the potential for foundation establishment. Zhang Linger was conflicted, her 10 fingers twisting together. For a while after that, Li Chang'an's cultivation was relatively peaceful. Perhaps deterred by Zhang Qingqing, neither Zhang Lingfeng nor Zhang Jinbao came to bother him again. Before he knew it, a month had passed. It's time for the scheduled transaction with the Zhang family. Li Chang'an calculated the date and had already prepared a batch of middle-grade talismans. According to their agreement, for the first transaction, Zhang Qingqing would come to pick them up in person. Zhang Qingqing hadn't arrived yet, but at that moment, another female cultivator appeared at his door. Liu Yue. Her eyes were slender, her vermilion lips were slightly pursed, and her figure was graceful. She was meticulously dressed. Over the past few days, Liu Yue had been thinking for a long time. Even though Li Chang'an doesn't have a middle-grade talismanic inheritance, the fact that he can live in this area clearly means he has considerable skill. Besides, he's much younger than Luo Kun. If she could become Taoist partners with Li Chang'an, she could enjoy this cultivation spiritual land with him. Although he was a bit stiff, Liu Yue was very confident in her own charm. Just then, a familiar voice reached Liu Yue's ears. Taoist Liu, are you also here to see Taoist Li? Liu Yue froze and looked toward the voice. The person speaking was none other than the Zhang family's young lady, Zhang Qingqing. Young lady. Liu Yue immediately adopted a respectful expression. Thinking of the word also in Zhang Qingqing's sentence, a sense of disbelief arose in her heart. Young lady, you're here to see Li Chang'an too. Liu Yue really couldn't imagine what business the Zhang family's young lady could have with Li Chang'an. The disparity in their strength and status was just too vast. I have a prior appointment with Taoist Li. Zhang Qingqing smiled, not explaining further. She then walked to the courtyard gate and knocked. Inside the house, Li Chang'an heard the knock, got up, and went outside to open the gate. To his surprise, it wasn't just Zhang Qingqing outside the gate, but Liu Yue as well. Young lady Taoist Liu. Li Chang'an cupped his hands in greeting and invited the two of them into the courtyard. Then, as agreed, he handed the prepared Tier 1 middle-grade talismans to Zhang Qingqing. Young lady, these are this month's talismans. Please count them. There's no need. I trust you, Taoist Li. Zhang Qingqing's expression was gentle. She took the talismans with her fair hand and gave Li Chang'an the spirit stones for their purchase. Seeing this, Liu Yue's lovely mouth fell slightly open as she stared at the talismans in astonishment. With her attainments in the talisman art, she could naturally tell that the talismans in this transaction were not low-grade talismans at all. In other words, Li Chang'an could now create middle-grade talismans. His talisman art was far more advanced than what he had publicly shown. Taoist Li, you're already a middle-grade talisman master. Liu Yue's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Li Chang'an, unable to stop herself from asking. Li Chang'an smiled and nodded. I was lucky enough to obtain a middle-grade talismanic inheritance and just broke through recently. Hearing him admit it himself, Liu Yue was even more shocked, and the many questions in her mind were instantly answered. No wonder Li Chang'an could live in this area with such dense spiritual power. The talent he was displaying now was far greater than that old man Luo Kun's. He's worth the Zhang family's effort to win him over. By the way, Taoist Liu, what did you need to see me about? Li Chang'an put away the spirit stones and looked at Liu Yue. Liu Yue's mind raced, and she answered, I've had a lot of questions about the talisman art recently, so I came today to discuss them with you, Taoist Li. I see. Li Chang'an nodded slightly, seemingly believing her. But he knew better. Before today, I hadn't revealed any skill with middle-grade talismans. If Liu Yue had questions about the art, it would have made more sense for her to ask our neighbor Luo Kun. What good would asking me do? Before long, Zhang Qingqing took her leave. Before she left, she gave Liu Yue a meaningful look, then suddenly turned to Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, my previous offer to you still stands. If you change your mind, I can introduce you to a young lady of the Zhang family with a spiritual root at any time. Li Chang'an was taken aback. He replied politely, "Thank you for thinking so highly of me, young lady, but I truly have no such intentions at the moment." Hearing this, Zhang Qingqing simply smiled and said no more. She turned and left the courtyard. Inside the courtyard, Liu Yue wore a look of utter disbelief. "Taoist Li, the Zhang family plans to recruit you as a son-in-law." "Yes, the young lady has already introduced me to one." Hearing him say this, Liu Yue found it even harder to believe. He'd already been introduced to one, and from the looks of it, Li Chang'an had clearly not agreed. Many loose cultivators out there who want to marry into the Zhang family can only hope to marry one of their mortal women. They wouldn't even dare to dream of a young lady from the Zhang family with a spiritual root, and Li Chang'an actually refused. At this thought, Liu Yue suddenly felt a pang of defeat. If Li Chang'an wouldn't even consider a young lady of the Zhang family with a spiritual root, would he even look twice at me? Afterward, Liu Yue began to ask for advice on the talisman art. She did everything she could, trying to get Li Chang'an to give her a second glance. But Li Chang'an remained strictly professional, only discussing talismans and giving her no opening whatsoever. In the end, Liu Yue had no choice but to leave. Over the next few months, Li Chang'an's transactions with the Zhang family proceeded smoothly. During this time, Liu Yue came by a few times, but Li Chang'an casually found an excuse to send her away on each occasion. News that Li Chang'an had become a middle-grade talisman master also gradually spread throughout the marketplace. Many people were quite surprised when they heard the news. The most surprised of all was none other than his next-door neighbor, Luo Kun. That kid actually has a middle-grade talismanic inheritance, and he advanced so quickly. Upon hearing this news, Luo Kun was stunned for a long time. After all, he had once said that Li Chang'an was too stiff and wouldn't have much success in the talisman art. But Li Chang'an hadn't said a word. He had simply used his own strength to answer those past words. The thought of this made Luo Kun's chest tight, and even drinking lost its flavor. That kid was hiding so much. No wonder the Zhang family values him. In the cultivation immortality realm, youth represented potential. Li Chang'an was several decades younger than him. It was only natural that the Zhang family valued Li Chang'an more. But Luo Kun refused to admit his age and secretly started to compete. HMPH, I will definitely create a high-quality middle-grade talisman before he does. A high-quality talisman of any given tier was more valuable and more difficult to create than a regular talisman of the same tier. Luo Kun was confident that his understanding of the talisman art was deeper. He would surely be able to create a high-quality one before Li Chang'an could. During this period, Li Chang'an paid no attention to the outside world's reactions. He remained focused, switching between cultivation, talisman painting, and puppetry every day, never wasting a single moment. In the borrowed state, my success rate for creating Tier 1 top-grade talismans has already surpassed 80%. Li Chang'an thought to himself. Such a success rate was already quite astonishing. Just then, a new divination appeared before his eyes. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. You head to the black market to sell talismans. On the way, you discover that the Zhang family's elder, Xianxia, and his granddaughter, Zhang Linger, are being ambushed by two experts at the late stage of qi refining. You save them in passing and earn a favor from the Zhang family. A favor from the Zhang family. Li Chang'an's heart stirred. If I can secure this favor, will I be able to enter the Zhang family's library? Chapter 49, Zhang Linger in danger. The Zhang family's library housed a vast collection of cultivation techniques and magic. It was rumored that among them was a fire element technique that had reached the top grade tier. It was a prize coveted by countless loose cultivators with fire element roots. Furthermore, there were middle-grade cultivation techniques for the other four elements, all of them high quality. I hope this favor will be enough to earn me a chance to enter the library. Li Chang'an mused. The Zhang family's library was difficult for outsiders to enter. Even the family's own disciples mostly needed to accumulate contribution points to be allowed inside to choose cultivation techniques and magic. I'll be facing two enemies at the late stage of qi refining this time. The divination was auspicious, but I still can't afford to be careless. Li Chang'an stared at the results of the divination for a long time. Xianxia. Since he's a Zhang family elder, he must have a cultivation at the late stage of qi refining. He can handle one of the enemies. Under normal circumstances, Li Chang'an would only need to deal with one enemy at the late stage of qi refining. Whether he used a puppet or just sent Dawang, it would be no problem. But he had always been cautious. He had to prepare for the worst-case scenario in all matters. I need to prepare a few more escape talismans for Dawang, so he can run if things go south. Li Chang'an thought to himself. He simulated all sorts of possibilities in his mind. Time slowly passed. Before he knew it, the entire night had gone by. The next day, early in the morning, Li Chang'an altered his aura and left the marketplace. He followed his usual route, heading straight for the black market. Before long he paused, hearing the sounds of a fierce battle. Just as I expected. With a thought, Li Chang'an had the profound water turtle activate its borrowing technique talent. Then he used several aura-concealing talisman to suppress his presence to the absolute minimum. Let's see what the situation really is. With a flicker, Li Chang'an cast the little 5 elements escape technique, silently merging into the earth. Ahead, not far away, magical power raged in a fierce battle. Li Chang'an saw 4 figures, with Xianxia, dressed in a white gown, being particularly conspicuous. That old man protecting Xianxia must be her grandfather, Xianxia. The situation was more or less as Li Chang'an had imagined. Xianxia's strength was insufficient, so she could only use talismans, magical artifacts, and the like, trying her best to affect the 2 enemies. But the impact was not significant. Xianxia was practically fighting 2 against 1. At that moment, a fire dragon formed from magical power soared into the air, its flames churning as it bared its fangs and claws. Its aura was terrifyingly powerful. This was the Zheng family's middle-grade fire element technique, the fire dragon roar. Go! Xianxia's hair and beard flew wildly, his magic robe flapping as he waved a large hand. The fire dragon roared and immediately charged toward the 2 black-robed cultivators. Hehe, Xianxia, is this all you've got? The 2 black-robed cultivators didn't dodge or evade, their faces showing no fear. Water element magical power fluctuated around them. They were both cultivators with water spirit roots. The 5 elements countered each other, and the water element was the perfect counter to the fire element. Nether water arrow. The 2 of them cast the same magic in unison. The surging water element magical power transformed into countless deadly water arrows, which erupted in an instant and shot straight for the fire dragon. Rumble! Water and fire clashed, the sound shaking the heavens and the earth. After just a few breaths, the fire dragon let out a wail, unable to maintain its form, and dissipated on the spot. The remaining water arrows continued onward with undiminished force, flying in unison toward Xianxia. Defend! Xianxia flicked his sleeve. An array of spiritual light shot out, transforming into a defensive magical artifact that blocked the path in front of him and Xianxia. The numerous water arrows slammed into the magical artifact, creating a series of thunderous booms. The magical artifact trembled. It seemed unable to hold on. Xianxia struggled to maintain it, his face turning a few shades paler. Tusk, an elder of the Zheng family, is nothing special after all. The 2 black-robed cultivators cackled strangely. Xianxia didn't speak, still gritting his teeth and holding on. These 2 were no weaker than him, and their elemental attributes even countered his. Even facing one of them would have been difficult, let alone 2. Moreover, he had to divert his attention to protect his granddaughter, Xianxia. Linger, I'll find a way to tie these 2 down. When you get a chance, don't hesitate. Just run. Xianxia's tone was heavy as he sent a sound transmission to Xianxia. Hearing this, Xianxia's heart trembled, and she said urgently, Grandfather, I can help you. You can't help with anything, just listen to me. Xianxia's attitude was resolute. Xianxia grew more anxious, wanting to do something. But she quickly realized that in a situation like this, there was nothing she could do. Staying here would only drag her grandfather down. If only I had Sister Qianqing's level of cultivation. Tears welled up in her eyes as a deep sense of helplessness spread through her heart. Meanwhile, the attacks from the 2 black-robed cultivators grew even more ferocious. One magic after another bombarded Xianxia's defensive magical artifact, sending waves of turbulent water element magical power surging outwards. Old man, stop trying to hold on. Any more struggling is futile, why bother? Their words were full of mockery. Just then Xianxia suddenly swallowed an explosive spirit pill, and his aura surged dramatically. Terrifying fire element magical power spread out, seemingly about to scorch the entire sky red. He pointed a finger. Streaks of intense flame linked together, instantly forming a cage that trapped the two men inside. The middle grade technique, flame prison. Linger, go now. Knowing the cage wouldn't hold them for long, Xianxia immediately yelled to Zhenglinger. Grandfather. Zhenglinger's eyes were blurred with tears, her heart filled with reluctance to leave. But she did not hesitate. She immediately used all of her escape methods, transforming into a streak of light and turning to flee straight toward the marketplace. HMPH trying to run. The two black-robed cultivators snorted coldly. They joined forces. They cast their magic in unison. After just a few breaths, they shattered the flame prison. I'll go after the girl. You stay here and don't let this old man escape. All right. The two split up. One of them flickered, his speed increasing dramatically as he gave chase in the direction Zhenglinger had fled. Xianxia intended to stop him, but the other man let out a sinister cackle and blocked his path. Old man, you can barely save yourself. You still want to save someone else. Bastard! Xianxia's eyes were filled with anxiety as he glanced in the direction of Zhenglinger's escape. Although his magical power was currently stronger, no matter what technique he used, he couldn't break through his opponent's blockade. Furthermore, the effects of the explosive spirit pill wouldn't last much longer. At this moment, Zhenglinger was fleeing at top speed. As a disciple of the Zheng family, she naturally had no shortage of treasures for escaping. Unfortunately, the gap in strength between them was simply too great. In just a few moments, the black-robed cultivator had already caught up. Heh, little girl, why are you running? You're just choosing a different place to die. Hearing this, Zhenglinger's body trembled. Seeing the black-robed cultivator closing in, a sense of despair began to grow in her heart. Just then, something unexpected happened. Swoosh! A flying needle, as fine as a hair, appeared from nowhere and shot instantly toward the back of the black-robed cultivator's head. The black-robed cultivator sensed danger, and the hair on his body stood on end. But it was too late to dodge. PCHD. The strange flying needle pierced straight into his mind. Terrifying magical power erupted inside his skull. His body stiffened, and he slowly fell to the ground. His aura was gone. He was dead. Chapter 50, Chapter 510, A Bountiful Harvest. A direct hit. Hidden in the shadows, Chang'an breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he didn't have any top-tier defensive magical artifacts. Otherwise, this would have turned into a drawn-out struggle. Dahuang was the one who had launched that ghost soul needle. Dahuang was stronger than this tribulation cultivator. However, in a direct, life-or-death battle, it would have been difficult to determine a victor quickly. The longer it dragged on, the greater the chance of something unexpected happening. There's only one enemy left. He shouldn't be too hard to deal with. With a thought, Chang'an acted. The top-grade defense puppet materialized and moved to the black-robed cultivator's corpse. To be safe, it raised its blade and swung, lopping off the man's head in a single stroke. Only then did it begin to search his body for valuables. His weapon is a Tier 1 top-grade water element magical artifact, the Overlapping Waves Ring. His defensive magical artifact is a piece of top-grade soft armor. Neither is cheap, and his storage pouch has plenty of elixir and talisman. Chang'an did a quick inventory, as expected of a late-stage chi refining cultivator. The treasures on his person, all told, were worth over 2,000 spirit stones. My funds have taken a huge hit lately from making puppets. It's about time I had a big score like this. Chang'an looked at the treasure in the storage pouch, feeling particularly satisfied. This business of killing and looting was far more profitable than honestly practicing talisman painting. Afterward, he collected the black-robed cultivator's head, then slapped a talisman on the corpse, incinerating it to ash. Zhenglinger sure is fast. Chang'an glanced back. Even though the black-robed cultivator had been killed, Zhenglinger hadn't stopped. She was still fleeing for her life, her speed not letting up in the slightest. After all, she couldn't be sure. Which side is this mysterious expert on, the one who killed the black-robed cultivator? Maybe he intended to save her, or maybe he just wanted to kill them both. She's not stupid, a cautious one. Li Chang'an nodded slightly. Time to check on Zhang Song. His figure flickered as he rushed toward that area. Meanwhile, Zhang Song was still locked in a fierce battle with the other black-robed cultivator. Rumble. Magical power surged as water and fire clashed violently. At first, he had been able to suppress the black-robed cultivator. But as the effects of the explosive spirit pill began to wane, his aura grew weak and unstable. He couldn't hold on for much longer. I'm still a step behind in the end. Zhang Song's face was deathly pale. He knew he was going to die today. The black-robed cultivator noticed his condition as well. He let out a sinister laugh. Heh heh, you old bastard, what happened? Is your magical power getting weak? His eyes were filled with cruelty, and his attacks grew even more vicious. Zhang Song, meanwhile, was gradually losing ground. His magical power grew weaker and weaker. Barring any surprises, the battle would be over in a few more breaths. But just then, the black-robed cultivator's expression changed. The hairs on his body stood on end as he caught the scent of death. A sneak attack. His reflexes were incredibly fast. He bent his entire body forward. He actually managed to dodge the ghost soul needle launched by Dawang. Who is it? His face contorted in rage. The black-robed cultivator threw up 2 magical artifact shields to protect himself. He followed up by activating more than 10 Tier 1 top-grade defense talismans. He scanned his surroundings, his eyes filled with malice. You despicable coward, do you only dare to hide in the shadows and ambush me? From the shadows, Li Chang'an was secretly surprised. The man's reaction speed was truly beyond his expectations. This man must fight often, otherwise there's no way he could have developed such quick reflexes. Li Chang'an mused. His previous one-hit kill had been partly due to luck. Back then, the black-robed cultivator had been focused on chasing Zhang Linger and had let his guard down. Since a sneak attack failed, I'll have to try another way. With a thought, the top-grade defense puppet appeared instantly. It wore a bamboo hat and was completely shrouded in a magic robe, making it impossible to identify as a puppet. Late stage of chi refining. The black-robed cultivator's heart sank as he felt the aura emanating from it. A Tier 1 top-grade puppet, when controlled properly, was equivalent to a late-stage chi refining cultivator. Furthermore, the materials Li Chang'an had used for this puppet were of exceptionally high quality. The aura it was currently releasing was considerably stronger than that of the black-robed cultivator. Daoist friend, this is a grudge between my Black Wind Mountain and the Zhang family. Are you sure you want to get involved? The black-robed cultivator was already thinking of retreating, his guard up. Li Chang'an didn't answer. Instead, the puppet brandished a magical artifact and charged straight at the black-robed cultivator. Seeing this, Zhang Song was overjoyed. Thank you for your help, Daoist friend. Once this battle is over, my Zhang family will reward you generously. The black-robed cultivator's face darkened, but he had no choice but to engage. In the blink of an eye, the two had exchanged more than a dozen blows. During the exchange, the black-robed cultivator's expression grew uglier and uglier as he realized just how troublesome this puppet was. Is this guy a body-refining cultivator? Why is he so tough? The magic he cast would land on the puppet body, but at most, it only made it shudder slightly. He couldn't even force it back a single half-step. Damn it, I can't drag this out. The black-robed cultivator hastily retreated, breaking off the engagement. If this dragged on any longer, the rest of the Zhang family's cultivators would arrive. At that point, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. My Black Wind Mountain will remember what happened here today. He shot them a vicious look and spat out the threat. Then, his entire body transformed into a streak of light and shot off into the distance. Trying to run, Li Chang'an's expression was icy as he stared in the direction the man had fled. The puppet body remained where it was. Meanwhile, in secret, he sent another puppet, one specializing in speed, to pursue him along with Dawang. Nearby, Zhang Song swallowed a few healing elixirs. He remained vigilant as he cupped his hands toward Li Chang'an's puppet. Thank you for saving me, Daoist friend. It was nothing, Li Chang'an replied. The two exchanged a few more words. During their conversation, Zhang Song tried to probe for Li Chang'an's identity. But Li Chang'an revealed nothing. Meanwhile, the black-robed cultivator was still fleeing. Seeing that no one was pursuing him, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief and was about to take out an elixir pill. Suddenly, an alarm went off in his head, and he felt a deathly chill rapidly approaching. Not good. Another sneak attack. He hastily held his breath and bent his body again. He barely managed to avoid the incoming ghost soul needle. But what he never expected was that accompanying the ghost soul needle was a massive, sky-blotting net. The shadowless net. His face went pale. He had no time to dodge and was completely ensnared. No matter how much he struggled, he couldn't break free. In the blink of an eye, the shadowless net tightened completely, immobilizing the black-robed cultivator within. This combination of the shadowless net and the ghost soul needle is really effective. Li Chang'an mused as his puppet body appeared. The black-robed cultivator's eyes widened in fury. "Who the hell are you? Why are you targeting Black Wind Mountain?" Li Chang'an didn't answer. He walked over and tossed the man directly into his spirit beast bag. After that, he and Dawang sank deep into the earth. In a sealed underground space, he released the man. "I have some questions for you," Li Chang'an said in a cold tone as he began the interrogation. The man was no tough nut to crack. Before long, he had confessed everything. "Black Wind Mountain has 7 late-stage chi refining cultivators. I'm ranked 6th, and my men call me 6th leader." Chapter 51, The Young Lady's Surprise. Earlier, the tribulation cultivator who had died in the sneak attack was the 7th master of Black Wind Mountain. Both of them were at the chi refining 7th layer. They targeted the Zheng family because they were hired by the Foundation establishment Cao family. After a round of interrogation, Li Chang'an got the answers he wanted. The Foundation establishment Cao family was actually colluding with the notorious tribulation cultivators of Black Wind Mountain. If word of this got out, it would certainly cause a massive uproar. But Li Chang'an wasn't the least bit surprised. After all, Zheng Jinbao had once colluded with Wei Sen, the 3rd master of Black Wind Mountain. The cultivation immortality families, few of them are clean. Li Chang'an shook his head slightly. Black Wind Mountain existed within the sphere of influence of the 3 great Foundation establishment clans. Far from weakening, it had actually grown stronger. Their big master, just as the rumors said, was only a hair's breadth away from Foundation establishment. He simply lacked the treasures needed to assist with the process and hadn't dared to make the attempt. If that big master succeeds in reaching Foundation establishment, a tribulation cultivator at that level will definitely cause a lot of trouble. Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. "Forget it, this has nothing to do with me. Let the Zheng family deal with the headache." Once the interrogation was over, Li Chang'an brought his palm down, ending the man's life. As usual, he activated a talisman, burning the corpse to ashes. Then he opened the man's storage pouch. After a quick look inside, a smile instantly appeared on his face. Not bad, more treasures worth over 2,000 spirit stones. This trip out today had been quite fruitful. At the same time, back at the site of the earlier battle, many disciples of the Zheng family had arrived one after another. Among them, surprisingly, was Zheng Qingqing. The young miss actually came. Li Chang'an glanced in that direction, his heart skipping a beat. Because, far behind Zheng Qingqing, he sensed an extremely faint yet powerful aura. Could it be that Foundation establishment ancestor? "Elder Songhe, how are your injuries?" Zheng Qingqing stepped forward and asked with concern. Beside her was the still-shaken Zheng Linger. "Sai, I nearly lost my life here today. It's all thanks to this Taoist's intervention." Zheng Song sighed with emotion. Then he recounted the entire incident to the crowd in great detail. After hearing his story, the members of the Zheng family present all looked at Li Chang'an with a bit more goodwill. Of course, there was also some suspicion. After all, the timing was just too coincidental. Did this expert at the late stage of chi refining, who had appeared out of nowhere, have some other motive? Could he even be one of Black Wind Mountain's own people? Just then, Zheng Qingqing suddenly spoke up. "Everyone rest assured, this Taoist is trustworthy." "Young miss, could it be that you know this Taoist?" "Yes. Zhang Qingqing smiled and turned to look at Li Chang'an. She sent a private voice transmission, her tone tinged with surprise. Taoist Li, I never expected it to be you, this puppet body of yours. Could it be Zhang Lingfeng's shadow-chasing puppet? Hearing this, Li Chang'an was taken aback. He transmitted back, young miss, how did you figure it out? In truth, he had never planned to hide this puppet from Zhang Qingqing. After all, the Zhang family would never allow a masked man of unknown identity into their library. But being called out so suddenly by Zhang Qingqing still surprised him. Zhang Qingqing pursed her lips and replied, I obtained an ancient treasure in the secret realm that can detect auras. I see. Li Chang'an understood. Many ancient treasures had come out of the secret realm, and some of them possessed exceptionally unique abilities. It seemed Zhang Qingqing was also a person of great fortune. This young miss is likely hiding many secrets herself. Li Chang'an thought to himself. Little did he know. Zhang Qingqing was thinking the same thing. She was finding it increasingly difficult to see through Li Chang'an. Every time they met, Li Chang'an would display abilities that exceeded her expectations. Logically, that shadow-chasing puppet can only be controlled by a member of my Zhang family. How is Li Chang'an able to command it? Zhang Qingqing fell into deep thought. Before long, the group returned to the marketplace. Zhang Qingqing did not reveal Li Chang'an's true identity to the others. With so many people around, prying eyes and ears were everywhere. Who knew if there was a spy from Black Wind Mountain within the Zhang family? She didn't want Li Chang'an to be targeted by Black Wind Mountain. Taoist, please come with me, Zhang Qingqing said softly, calling Li Chang'an away privately. The two of them went to her residence together. Taoist Li, why are you able to control the shadow-chasing puppet? She finally voiced the question that had been weighing on her mind. Li Chang'an shook his head in denial. Young miss, this isn't the shadow-chasing puppet. It's the one I bought at the auction. I had someone repair it. Oh, I see. Zhang Qingqing didn't press the matter. The puppet from the auction had indeed been a Tier 1 top grade. If one were willing to spare no expense in spirit stones and hire a top-grade puppet master, it was certainly possible to have it repaired. However, the cost would be so astronomical that most cultivators wouldn't do it. Young miss, this is the tribulation cultivator's head. Li Chang'an took a head out of his storage pouch. Zhang Qingqing glanced at it and said, this man is the 7th master of Black Wind Mountain. He has killed many disciples of our Zhang family. This time, Taoist Li, you have done our Zhang family a great service. Young miss, I have an impudent request. Please speak, Taoist Li. Zhang Qingqing had already anticipated this. Facing two experts at the late stage of qi refining. Given Li Chang'an's cautious nature, he wouldn't have intervened unless he had something to gain. Li Chang'an said directly, I wish to enter the Zhang family's library and choose a better cultivation technique. Just as I thought. Zhang Qingqing had guessed as much. The corners of her lips curled up as her beautiful eyes fixed on Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, for an outsider to enter the Zhang family's library, they must first present themselves before our foundation establishment ancestor. Are you sure you want to try? This. Li Chang'an froze. He hadn't expected the Zhang family's rules to be so strict. He had no desire to come face-to-face with a foundation establishment ancestor. If that ancestor saw that he possessed great fortune and decided to forcibly keep him there, it would be a disaster. Although the possibility was slim, he wasn't willing to take the gamble. Just then Zhang Qingqing suddenly smiled. Don't worry, Taoist Li. You don't need to see the ancestor. I happen to have extra family contribution points and can privately exchange them for a wood element technique for you. That would be wonderful, thank you, young miss. Li Chang'an breathed a sigh of relief. He had been on the verge of giving up. Afterward, the two discussed for a moment, and finally settled on the cultivation technique Li Chang'an needed, the cyan wood technique. The cyan wood technique is considered a high-quality technique among middle-grade ones. The wood element magical power it cultivates is extremely dense, and it possesses a self-regenerating characteristic, allowing for incredibly fast recovery. Zhang Qingqing explained slowly. This cultivation technique was the most suitable one for Li Chang'an at his current stage. That night, the cultivation technique was delivered to Li Chang'an. He sat cross-legged and read through it carefully. The more he read, the more delighted he became. This technique really is extraordinary. The evergreen technique he had previously cultivated simply couldn't compare. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Chang'an immediately dispersed the foundation of his evergreen technique and began to switch to the firewood technique. This kind of dispersion technique only scatters the characteristics of the original technique. His cultivation level remained. About an hour later, Chang'an successfully switched techniques. All his magical power transformed into the dense magical power of the firewood technique. At that moment, he could clearly feel that his speed of absorbing heaven and earth spiritual power far surpassed what it was before. From now on, my cultivation speed won't be so slow anymore. Chang'an silently savored the feeling. Suddenly, his whole body trembled, and a profound and mysterious aura emanated from him. A joyous expression appeared on Chang'an's face. My cultivation is finally about to break through. It was truly a double blessing. He immediately focused his mind and concentrated on his breakthrough. That night, Chang'an wasn't the only one having a breakthrough. At the estate of the foundation establishment Cao family, located some distance from the marketplace. Within their clan grounds, a burst of hearty laughter suddenly echoed from the depths of the estate. Eche, after so many years of cultivation, I've finally advanced to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Zheng the ghost, this old man is coming for you. Chapter 52, Foundation Establishment Attack. The night grew late. Indoors, Chang'an slowly opened his eyes, a trace of joy flashing in their depths. Qi refining 5th layer. This breakthrough was quite smooth. It was a natural progression. He had been at the Qi refining 4th layer for a long time, building a profound foundation. He only needed one final push. Switching his cultivation technique had provided the opportunity to break through. After switching to the firewood technique, my efficiency at absorbing spiritual power is far greater than before. Chang'an pondered. Now he didn't lack cultivation resources, had a superior spiritual land for cultivation, and had even switched to a better cultivation technique. All my other problems are solved. Only my spiritual root is a bit weak, but cultivating to foundation establishment shouldn't be an issue. Chang'an thought to himself. Although breaking through to foundation establishment was difficult with a low-grade spirit root, it wasn't impossible. If I get the chance, I should get my hands on a few more foundation establishment pills. By taking a foundation establishment pill, even if the breakthrough failed, a cultivator wouldn't suffer a backlash. Therefore, with enough foundation establishment pills, if one attempt failed, you could just try again. Sooner or later, one attempt would succeed. However, Chang'an Marketplace is just a small place. It's very difficult to obtain foundation establishment pills and various foundation establishment spiritual objects here. Chang'an thought to himself. Ultimately, I'll still have to go to Yellow Crane Immortal City. A moment later, he made a decision. After breaking through to the Qi refining 7th layer, he would leave Chang'an Marketplace and head to the Immortal City to seek his chance at foundation establishment. Before then, I need to save up more spirit stones and do my best to acquire a body refining technique. Chang'an mulled it over for a moment and confirmed his goals. Saving spirit stones was for buying foundation establishment pills. Body refinement was for his vitality. To break through to foundation establishment, one needed to overcome the 3 barriers of essence, Qi, and divine. The divine barrier refers to one's spiritual power. And Chang'an's spiritual power far exceeded that of cultivators at the same stage, so this barrier wouldn't be much of a problem. The Qi barrier represents magical power. The magical power from the firewood technique is extremely potent. It shouldn't hold me back when I try for foundation establishment. Chang'an was fairly satisfied with his magical power. Only the essence barrier made him a little unsure. The essence of one's flesh and blood begins to wane after the age of 60. Thus, it's best to reach foundation establishment before then, unless one has practiced a body refining technique to firmly lock in their vitality. At his current cultivation speed, he was certain he could reach the Qi refining 9th layer before he turned 60. Even without body refinement, he would still meet the conditions to attempt foundation establishment. But he felt it wasn't safe enough. With body refinement, my vitality will be more vigorous, making it easier to break through to Foundation establishment. Li Chang'an mused. In the coming days, he had to pay more attention to news about body refining techniques. At this moment, a golden light flashed before his eyes, and the contents of the divination appeared. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination auspicious. The Cao family's Foundation establishment ancestor breaks through to the middle stage of Foundation establishment, raids overnight, and battles the Zheng family's Foundation establishment ancestor. The marketplace falls into chaos. You take advantage of the chaos to eliminate Zheng Jinbao and obtain the wealth he has accumulated over many years. A Foundation establishment ancestor is attacking. Li Chang'an's heart jumped in shock. His expression turned grave as he read the divination's contents carefully several times. The conflict between the three great families has finally spilled over into the marketplace, and it's happening so fast. Li Chang'an's heart grew heavy. A battle between Foundation establishment cultivators. If two middle-stage Foundation establishment ancestors were to fight inside the marketplace, who knows how many deaths and injuries would result? After all, to those at Foundation establishment, everyone below was an ant. A Foundation establishment ancestor could kill a late stage of qi refining expert with a single, casual blast of magical power. In such a dangerous situation, how can the divination be auspicious? Could it be that the two Foundation establishment ancestors will fight outside the marketplace? Li Chang'an pondered for a moment and felt that must be the case. Otherwise, how could he possibly have a chance to eliminate Zheng Jinbao? I can't let my guard down. I have to prepare for the worst. Without the slightest hesitation, Li Chang'an immediately began to prepare. A moment later, he stealthily moved away from the marketplace, cast the little 5 elements escape technique, and burrowed deep into the earth. He went straight down, entering an extremely deep region underground. Hiding here should be safe. Unless my luck is absolutely terrible, I won't get caught in the crossfire. Li Chang'an calmed his heart and mind, concealing his entire aura. He waited silently beneath the thick yellow earth, just like a stone. He had left several puppets in the marketplace. One of them was his body double, another was watching Zheng Jinbao, and the rest were responsible for observing the overall situation in the marketplace. Time slowly passed. About half an hour later, on the distant horizon, a streak of light suddenly shot across the sky. Immediately after came a wild laugh. "Ha ha ha, Zheng the ghost, come on out and catch up with this old man." The voice was like a thunderclap, exploding in the silent night sky. In an instant, the entire marketplace was startled awake. What's happening? Zheng the ghost, is he talking about the Zheng family's Foundation establishment ancestor? Countless people woke from their sleep, their faces filled with terror. What kind of person would dare to call the Zheng family's Foundation establishment ancestor, Zheng the ghost? Thinking of the conflict between the three great families, everyone felt a sense of dread. Could it be that the Foundation establishment ancestors from the Cao and Wu families have come to attack? Soon, an extremely tyrannical aura appeared just outside the marketplace. The newcomer was a middle-aged man with a square face, brimming with vigorous vitality and an overwhelming aura. It was none other than the Cao family's Foundation establishment ancestor. Cao Zhengsheng. Zheng the ghost, have you finally died of old age? Why won't you come out and see this old man? He let out a thunderous roar. The sound made countless people dizzy, their vision blurring. Furthermore, the terrifying pressure of a middle stage of Foundation establishment expert was released without reservation, suffocating the many cultivators in the marketplace. Just then, a cold snort echoed through the night. HMPH. Everyone felt the pressure on them lighten. The next moment, an old man in a white robe with white hair and a white beard rose into the air, facing Cao Zhengsheng from a distance. The aura he emitted had also reached the middle stage of Foundation establishment. It was the Zheng family's Foundation establishment ancestor. Zheng Yuandao. Zheng the ghost, this old man knew you weren't dead. Cao Zhengsheng laughed loudly. Zheng Yuandao's expression was grave, his aged eyes fixed on Cao Zhengsheng. You've actually advanced to the middle stage of Foundation establishment. That's right. Cao Zhengsheng's aura was tyrannical, and he made no effort to restrain it. Back then, you relied on your higher cultivation to bully this old man repeatedly, even blocking the way outside the Cao clan territory. If it weren't for the protection of our array, I'm afraid you would have killed me long ago. Xianxia's voice boomed like a great bell as he spoke of the past. Now he was triumphant, and his heart was filled with satisfaction. Zheng the ghost, back then, did you ever imagine this day would come? Hearing this, Zheng Yuandao's expression remained unchanged, but a trace of worry rose in his heart. His sun was setting, but Xianxia was in his prime, with at least 100 years left to live. Did you come here today just to show off your cultivation? Zheng Yuandao asked nonchalantly. Seeing his calm and composed appearance, the many Zheng family disciples below relaxed slightly. The many loose cultivators also breathed a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, the Zheng family's foundation establishment ancestor didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. But Xianxia suddenly sneered. Zheng the ghost, you don't have much lifespan left, why bother putting up a strong front? As you are now, how many years do you have left? How many more times can you cast your magic? HMPH will know after a fight. Zheng Yuandao's aura surged, and he actually initiated the battle. His aura was powerful and majestic. He showed no sign of weakness at all. Good, good, good. This old man had the same idea. Xianxia showed no fear, his will to fight soaring. The two transformed into streaks of light, instantly moving far away from the marketplace. Before long, from far away under the night sky, came earth-shattering rumbles. The battle of foundation establishment had begun. Chapter 53, Great Chaos in the Marketplace. The battle between the foundation establishment experts. Just as Li Chang'an had guessed, it wasn't taking place within the marketplace. He marketplace belonged to the Zheng family, after all. There was no way Zheng Yuandao would fight here. And Xianxia also seemed to have his reservations. Both foundation establishment ancestors have gone outside the marketplace, so the fight won't spill over into it. In that case, when will the chaos that the divination foretold finally break out? Li Chang'an mused. He kept his eyes fixed on Zheng Jinbao, just waiting for the chaos to erupt. Just then, a sharp voice suddenly rang out within the marketplace. Fellow Taoists, the Zheng family's ancestor has already left. What are you still afraid of? If you're not going to pillage now, then when? The voice seemed to carry some kind of bewitching power. It stirred the hearts of many cultivators. And then, just as that voice faded, another one rose to take its place. Well said. Tonight, Kingham Marketplace is our great opportunity. Then, from all corners of the marketplace, more than 10 voices responded one after another. Fellow Taoists, without a great opportunity, we loose cultivators will never have a hope of reaching foundation establishment. If we join forces, the Zheng family is nothing to be afraid of. Kill, pillage. In an instant, the entire marketplace descended into chaos. The sound of explosions echoed continuously from the shops all over the marketplace. What are you doing? Stop it. A shopkeeper with a panicked expression was trying to stuff all the treasures in his shop into his storage pouch. But the next moment, a flash of a blade streaked past, severing his head. The large, blade-wielding man laughed wildly and rushed into the shop to plunder it. Ha ha ha, to think I'd stumble upon such a great opportunity. But he hadn't even finished looting. The sound of something tearing through the air came from behind him. Boom! A club-like magical artifact came crashing down, smashing his skull. Behind him, a ferocious-looking cultivator holding the magical artifact sneered, "This is my opportunity. Are you even worthy of it?" With that, he too began to loot the treasures inside the shop. Situations like this were happening all over the marketplace. The marketplace had always been home to many tribulation cultivators. Lately, they had been suppressed by the Zheng family, unable to even show their faces, and each one of them was simmering with frustration. Tonight, they finally had a chance to run wild. Furthermore, many ordinary loose cultivators, unable to resist the temptation, had also temporarily joined the ranks of the tribulation cultivators. How did it get so chaotic so quickly? Li Chang'an, observing from the shadows, was inwardly surprised. Behind this chaotic scene, someone was most likely fanning the flames. Amidst the great turmoil, both the shops in the marketplace and the residences in the core area became targets for the numerous tribulation cultivators. Everyone knew. The closer a residence was to the core area, the wealthier its owner. To think someone would actually target me. Li Chang'an's gaze turned cold as he stared at several tribulation cultivators rushing toward his residence. He immediately used his puppet body to control the array, showing no mercy. He killed them as they came, one by one. In just a few moments, he had already killed 6 tribulation cultivators. How are these guys so poor? They don't even have storage pouches, and the valuables on them are pathetic. Chang'an frowned to himself as he looted their bodies. Oh well, even a mosquito leg is still meat. They walked right into my hands after all. It would be a waste not to take it. Just then, the puppet that had been watching Zhang Jinbao finally had something to report. Is Zhang Jinbao planning to make a run for it? Chang'an watched intently from his hiding place. At that moment, Zhang Jinbao had already changed his clothes and now looked like an ordinary loose cultivator. With a nervous expression, he quietly left his residence and headed for the outskirts of the marketplace. Many cultivators were busy looting. Few people noticed him. Before long, a group of tribulation cultivators stormed into his residence and searched all over for a long time. Where is that dog Zhang Jinbao? He probably ran off long ago. Damn it, we finally had a chance. I really wanted to slaughter him. This scene was witnessed by Chang'an. He had anticipated it, so he wasn't surprised. Over the years, Zhang Jinbao has offended many people by throwing his weight around as a steward. In the past, the loose cultivators he oppressed could only swallow their anger and didn't dare to resist. But now, the tables had turned. In this great chaos, many members of the Zhang family couldn't even protect themselves. No one had the time to worry about Zhang Jinbao. That guy sure is a fast runner. Under Chang'an's watchful gaze, Zhang Jinbao had already reached the edge of the marketplace. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief and glanced back at the marketplace, now filled with blood and slaughter. As long as I can hide through the night, everything will go back to normal. He turned back around, walked out of the marketplace, and planned to head to a safe house he had prepared long ago to lie low for a while. However, he had barely gone any distance when he suddenly felt the ground beneath his feet give way. Not good. Zhang Jinbao screamed inwardly as his entire body plunged into the darkness underground. Before he could even react, a large net enveloped his body. Dao Wang's figure flashed past, scooping him into a spirit beast bag. The next instant, the earth where he had stood became smooth again, as if nothing had ever happened. Not long after, deep underground, a good distance from the marketplace, Dao Wang appeared and handed the spirit beast bag to Chang'an. Good job, Chang'an praised with a smile. Then, with a thought, Zhang Jinbao was tossed out of the spirit beast bag. His face was a mask of panic. The moment he was out, he cried, "Senior, spare me. This junior is willing to." He hadn't finished his sentence when he suddenly saw Chang'an's face and froze. Chang'an. Zhang Jinbao's face went pale, and he felt as if he had plunged into an abyss. He would rather have fallen into the hands of tribulation cultivators than be captured by Chang'an. "Steward Zhang, long time no see," Chang'an said with a casual, smiling greeting. A muscle in Zhang Jinbao's cheek twitched. He forced an ugly smile. "Yes, Chang'an, it has been a long time. How have you been?" "Very well," Chang'an replied with a smile, his voice betraying no killing intent. But the more he acted this way, the more uneasy Zhang Jinbao became. He swallowed hard, his heart pounding with apprehension. "Chang'an, I never thought you'd grow so quickly, to become so formidable in just a few short years." "Steward Zhang, I have you to thank for that," Chang'an said with a laugh. "The tribulation cultivators you hired came one after another to deliver treasures to my doorstep, so I never had to worry about cultivation resources. All I had to do was focus on my training." Hearing this, Zhang Jinbao's body trembled. He lowered his head, terrified, not daring to meet Chang'an's eyes. "Chang'an, what do you mean by tribulation cultivators?" He was still trying to play dumb, but Chang'an had no intention of wasting words on him. He took Zhang Jinbao's storage pouch, ground away the restriction on it, and opened it. He looked through it carefully. "Zhang Jinbao, you've been a steward in King Marketplace for so many years. Your fortune should be considerable, so why are there only a few hundred spirit stones in this storage pouch?" Zhang Jinbao opened his mouth. He had indeed hidden a batch of treasures, but if he revealed them, he would lose all his value. Therefore, he planned to use those treasures to make a deal with Li Chang'an in exchange for his life. But Li Chang'an wasn't in the mood to bargain with him. Fine, if you won't talk, then I'll just have to find a way to make you. All traces of a smile vanished from Li Chang'an's face, his expression turning sharp and cold. He immediately turned his head and gave an order. Da Wang, time for some torture. Woof. Da Wang looked at Zhang Jinbao, a vicious light glinting in its eyes. A terrifying gust of demonic wind instantly slammed into Zhang Jinbao's face, making him tremble from head to toe. Wait, I'll talk right now. Chapter 54, Astonishing Harvest. Zhang Jinbao's voice trembled. He stammered as he revealed where his treasure was hidden. I do have a lot of treasure hidden. It's in this storage pouch. Hello? Li Chang'an's brow furrowed as he stared at the storage pouch in his hand. He had already searched the storage pouch thoroughly. Aside from a few hundred spirit stones, the rest was just mundane junk. I'm not lying, it's really in there. Seeing that Li Chang'an seemed unconvinced, Zhang Jinbao hastily added. There's a bracelet inside. It's also a storage treasure, but you can't open it with magical power. You need to use spiritual power. Oh? With a thought from Li Chang'an. An instant later, a dark green bracelet appeared in his hand. On the surface, the bracelet looked unremarkable, like an ordinary object. Li Chang'an hadn't paid it any mind before. Now, hearing what Zhang Jinbao said, he inspected it again and finally noticed something amiss. On the bracelet was a silver dot, so tiny it was almost imperceptible. It's this kind of silver dot again. Li Chang'an was surprised. He had previously stumbled upon a bargain at the black market, a tattered array flag. On that array flag, there was a similar silver dot. It contained a pocket of space that only spiritual power could detect. These kinds of treasures are truly strange. I almost missed it. Li Chang'an silently extended a wisp of his spiritual power, touching the silver dot on the bracelet. As expected, he discovered a special space. It was piled high with a large amount of treasure, its value far exceeding what was in the storage pouch. There were over 2,000 spirit stones alone. In addition, there were also numerous magical artifacts, elixir pills, talismans, cultivation techniques, and magic, their total value hard to estimate for now. This really is quite a haul. Li Chang'an was inwardly astonished. Zhang Jinbao was only at the middle stage of qi refining. But his personal wealth far surpassed that of the too late stage of qi refining tribulation cultivators from Black Wind Mountain. This guy is insatiably greedy, completely blinded by avarice. Who knows how many times he abused his power for personal gain during his years as a steward. But now, all the wealth he hoarded belongs to me. Li Chang'an was very satisfied. With this windfall, his path to foundation establishment would be much smoother. He looked at Zhang Jinbao and questioned him again. This bracelet is rather strange. Where did you get it? An ancient secret realm. Zhang Jinbao answered honestly. A loose cultivator had brought the bracelet out of a secret realm. It then changed hands several times before he acquired it. Secret realms again. Li Chang'an mused. The tattered array flag he bought in the black market had also been found by the vendor in a secret realm. There were likely more treasures of this kind in the secret realms. Why would cultivators from ancient times specifically create magical artifacts driven by spiritual power? Li Chang'an found it strange. Could it be that in ancient times, spiritual power could be cultivated just like magical power? Forget it, those matters are too far removed. I need to focus on what's in front of me. Li Chang'an shook his head, focusing his mind. He calmed himself and began to carefully inspect the treasures inside the bracelet. There are 2 Tier 1 top-grade magical artifacts, one for offense and one for defense. Both are fire element treasures, so they aren't very useful to me, but they're quite valuable. I'll find some time to sell them at the black market. 5 middle-grade magical artifacts, also fire element. And quite a few low-grade magical artifacts. The sheer quantity and quality of the magical artifacts alone would be enough to astonish many experts at the late stage of qi refining. Furthermore, there was a large quantity of expensive elixir pills. The Zhang family was an alchemy family after all, and Zhang Jinbao was considered a core member. The collection of elixir pills he had hoarded left even Li Chang'an secretly amazed. This is a Tier 1 top-grade elixir, the clear spirit pill. It's like an advanced version of the qi nourishing pill, suitable for the late stage of qi refining. For a middle stage qi refining cultivator like Zheng Jinbao to take it is an incredible luxury. This awakening pill is also a tier 1 top grade elixir. It clears the mind and sharpens the senses, and it's not cheap. There's even a cloud-breaking pill. Li Chang'an's eyes lit up with joy as he took out a small pill bottle. The elixir pill in the bottle was indeed a cloud-breaking pill. This type of pill could help a middle-stage qi refining cultivator break through to the late stage of qi refining, its value far surpassing the other top-grade elixirs. At the last auction, a single cloud-breaking pill had sold for the high price of 950 spirit stones. That was more valuable than many top-grade magical artifacts. After all, an increase in one's cultivation is permanent, whereas magical artifacts are merely external tools for temporary use. I have no use for this cloud-breaking pill. I should be able to get a good price for it at the black market. Li Chang'an mused. Using an elixir pill to break through from the middle stage to the late stage of qi refining would diminish one's future potential. It would negatively impact one's future foundation establishment. He put the cloud-breaking pill away and continued to take stock of the other treasures. There are plenty of middle-grade and low-grade elixirs. I won't need to buy any for a long time to come. Besides elixir pills, there was also a considerable number of talismans. Most of them were life-saving talismans. Zheng Jinbao knew he had offended many people, which was why he'd bought so many. However, they had all fallen into Li Chang'an's hands before he'd had a chance to use them. No matter how great a treasure is, you still need the opportunity to use it. Li Chang'an couldn't help but reflect. If your strength is too low, what's the use of having countless treasures? After taking stock of the talismans, Li Chang'an began to look through the numerous cultivation techniques and magic. They're all fire element cultivation techniques and magic, not very useful to me. Suddenly his gaze froze. What's this? With a thought from Li Chang'an, a jade scroll instantly appeared in his hand. This jade scroll recorded a cultivation technique called the /demon blood body tempering skill /. It's a body refining technique. Li Chang'an's eyes lit up, pleasantly surprised. He had searched for a long time in both the black market and the marketplace, but had never found a body refining technique. To think, he would actually obtain one from Zheng Jinbao. Li Chang'an held the jade scroll, but after browsing it for a moment, some of his excitement faded. He frowned slightly and thought, what a pity. This body refining technique is incomplete. It only contains the Tier 1 material, allowing cultivation only to the Tier 1 peak at most. Tier 1 body refinement corresponded to the Qi refining stage for cultivators. Tier 2, in turn, corresponded to foundation establishment. According to rumor, once one's body refinement reached Tier 2, one could directly withstand the attacks of a foundation establishment great cultivator. Oh well, I can't be greedy. Tier 1 peak is good enough. Li Chang'an put down the jade scroll with a soft sigh. A body refining cultivation at the Tier 1 peak would be enough to make his qi and blood far surpass that of other cultivators in the same realm. When it came time to break through to foundation establishment, he wouldn't have to worry about the essence requirement. Li Chang'an looked at Zheng Jinbao and asked, since you had a body refining technique, why didn't you cultivate it? I tried, but it was too painful. Zheng Jinbao shook his head repeatedly. My aptitude is poor, and my chances of reaching foundation establishment are slim. Why bother with that kind of suffering? Don't want to suffer. Hearing this, Li Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. The path of body refining was indeed excruciating, but what cultivator couldn't endure hardship? Seeking immortality through cultivation was, by its very nature, an act of defying the heavens. Suffering was an unavoidable part of that journey. With a temperament like that, it's no wonder you haven't broken through to the late stage of qi refining. Li Chang'an sized up Zheng Jinbao. The man was clearly used to a pampered and comfortable life. With his greasy face, he looked more like a wealthy lord than a cultivator. He probably hadn't put any real focus on his cultivation at all. Chapter 55, Killing Zheng Jinbao. About a quarter of an hour later, Li Chang'an finished taking inventory. This guy was really loaded, he marveled to himself. The treasures in the bracelet were worth no less than 3,000 spirit stones in total. adding the more than 2,000 spirit stones he already had. The total was over 5,000 spirit stones. It was a truly massive sum. Some of the smaller Qi refining clans couldn't even produce this many spirit stones. Li Chang'an put away the bracelet and looked at Zhang Jinbao. I have a few questions for you. If I'm satisfied with your answers, I might let you go. Really? Zhang Jinbao was stunned, a sliver of hope rising in his heart. He had thought his death was certain. But now there was a light at the end of the tunnel. He had hope of survival. Don't worry, I'm a man of my word, I never lie. Li Chang'an's expression was earnest, his tone solemn. All right then, ask away. Zhang Jinbao swallowed hard. Although he knew the chances were slim, he still clung to a shred of wishful thinking. What if Li Chang'an really does let me go? What is the real situation with your ancestor, Zhang Yuandao? How many years does he have left? Li Chang'an spoke, his gaze fixed on Zhang Jinbao's face, observing any change in his expression. Hearing this, Zhang Jinbao froze for a moment. A bitter look on his face, he shook his head and said, "That's a family secret. How would someone of my status be qualified to know? You're a core member of the Zhang family. You don't even know that. Barely anyone in the entire Zhang family knows." Zhang Jinbao honestly explained the reason. The patriarch is worried about spies within the clan, so he hasn't disclosed the ancestor's physical condition internally. He thought for a moment, then added, "However, the young miss should know the ancestor's true situation." He explained that Zhang Qingqing was the Zhang family's foundation establishment seed, deeply trusted by the two foundation establishment ancestors. She was a direct descendant of one of the ancestors. Her own strength was formidable, and she broke through to the late stage of Qi refining long ago. The reason the Zhang family sent her to the marketplace, instead of keeping her on the clan grounds, was to temper her character. This young miss is truly unfathomable, Li Chang'an mused. If all went according to plan, Zhang Qingqing would very likely be the Zhang family's next foundation establishment ancestor. Does the Zhang family have any more foundation establishment pills? Li Chang'an asked again. On this question, Zhang Jinbao did know something. He shook his head and replied, "There probably aren't any left." Oh? Li Chang'an seemed lost in thought, then asked, "Could it be that someone failed their foundation establishment and wasted the elixir pills?" Yes. This sort of information was also a family secret, one Zhang Jinbao was not originally qualified to know. But attempting foundation establishment causes an anomaly in the heaven and earth spiritual qi. Although the Zhang family tried to hide it, it was impossible to conceal completely. Over the past few decades, there had been 4 such spiritual power anomalies within the Zhang family, but no new foundation establishment ancestor had emerged. A foundation establishment pill only increases the success rate by 20%. Whether one ultimately succeeded or not still came down to the individual. Later, I happened to overhear the patriarch sighing that, although those few were talented, their characters were too weak and lacked tempering, which is why they failed. 4 consecutive failures had been a major blow, even for a family like the Zhangs. After all, for a large clan like this, every attempt at foundation establishment is prepared for at the highest standard. They not only had to prepare a foundation establishment pill, but also foundation establishment spiritual objects like earth dragon saliva, as well as various other supporting treasures. The amount of spirit stones consumed was astronomical. The last spiritual power anomaly was 13 years ago. There's been no movement since then, but there are clearly several others in the family who meet the conditions for foundation establishment. Therefore, Zhang Jinbao guessed that the Zhang family had no more foundation establishment pills. Perhaps the ancestors are gathering materials for refining. After all, they think very highly of the young miss and will definitely prepare a foundation establishment pill for her. I see. After hearing this, Li Chang'an fell silent for a moment in contemplation. The Zhang family is quite unlucky, failing 4 times in a row. However, this also just goes to show how difficult foundation establishment truly is. Afterward, Li Chang'an asked a few more questions. Zhang Jinbao was very cooperative, answering everything he knew. Finally, he looked at Li Chang'an nervously and asked cautiously, "Chang'an, you promised you'd let me go, right? We've known each other for so many years. You could say we're old friends." Li Chang'an grunted in agreement and turned to glance at Dawang. At his side, Dawang understood instantly. A fierce light glinted in its eyes as it pounced, swiping down with a claw. Shlizik. Zhang Jinbao's face was filled with horror, but he couldn't dodge in time. His entire neck was torn in two by the sharp claws. Blood instantly stained his robes red. It's you. Zhang Jinbao stared deathly at Li Chang'an, knowing he wasn't going to live. On the verge of death, all sorts of emotions flashed through his mind. There was venomous hatred, unwillingness to accept his fate, and also regret. Back then, he had taken Li Chang'an's spirit stones. He should have removed Li Chang'an's name from the mining list. But at the time, he had looked down on a low-level loose cultivator like Li Chang'an and insisted on sending him to the mines anyway. One had to understand. Most cultivators assigned to the mines met a miserable end. Back then, you never thought of letting me go. Li Chang'an's expression was indifferent, his tone ice cold. Hearing these words, Zhang Jinbao trembled all over. He said no more, slowly lowered his head, and his life's breath faded away. You reap what you sow. Perhaps it was all fated from the start. Boom! A ball of fire erupted, engulfing his corpse and burning it to ash. After that, Li Chang'an ordered Dawang to fill in the underground space. Man and beast used the earth escape technique to travel far away, finding a new place to hide. At this moment, the two Foundation establishment ancestors had not yet determined a winner. The marketplace was still in chaos. Through his puppet body, Li Chang'an controlled the array and had already killed more than a dozen tribulation cultivators who had charged his residence. During this time, he discovered a few familiar tribulation cultivators. There are even people from Black Wind Mountain. Those tribulation cultivators were the very same ones who had hunted Zheng Yunting. Their appearance here meant that Black Wind Mountain had a hand in tonight's events. It's possible Black Wind Mountain secretly instigated the chaos in the marketplace, Li Chang'an thought. However, Black Wind Mountain should only be targeting the Zheng family. It has nothing to do with me. Until now, he had been relatively at ease. He hadn't suffered any losses. On the contrary, he had gained quite a lot. But not everyone could be as relaxed as him. At this moment, Luo Kun, his next-door neighbor, had reached the end of his rope. How are there so many of these tribulation cultivators? It's like they're endless. Luo Kun's face was pale, and he was gasping for breath. When the chaos first broke out, he had wanted to leave the marketplace. However, because he was usually so high-profile, he was far too well-known. The moment he stepped outside, a group of tribulation cultivators targeted him. He fought a running battle, but was forced to retreat back to his residence. Why did I have to be so high-profile? I should have learned from that kid, Li Chang'an. Luo Kun was filled with regret. In the past, he had thought Li Chang'an was too rigid and didn't understand how the world worked. Thinking about it now, there were advantages to not understanding how the world worked. At least not so many people would know who you were. But it was too late for regrets. In the blink of an eye, another group of tribulation cultivators came charging at his door. Among them were several whose strength was no less than his own. Jai, old Luo, hand over all your treasures. The words had barely faded when a great saber came cleaving down. Luo Kun's expression changed drastically. He summoned his magical artifact to block, but it was no use. His face paled as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying backward by the blow, crashing through the courtyard wall with a loud bang. He landed right in Li Chang'an's courtyard. How come that kid Li Chang'an hasn't run yet? Luo Kun spotted Li Chang'an and couldn't help but sigh. It's too late to run now. I've dragged him into this. Chapter 56, The Old Ancestors' Defeat. The strength Li Chang'an revealed to the public was not particularly high. Qi refining 4th layer. And a Tier 1 middle-grade talisman master. This level of strength would be considered decent in normal times. But now, there were tribulation cultivators everywhere. One group was killed only for another to appear. It was impossible to kill them all. His accumulated talismans would be used up sooner or later, and he would eventually have to rely on his own cultivation to kill his enemies. His cultivation is even lower than mine. I'm afraid he won't last long. Luo Kun sighed. He was severely injured and couldn't help Li Chang'an at all. Those few tribulation cultivators had already spotted Li Chang'an, and their eyes lit up. Haha, what an unexpected bonus. A kid who can afford to live in a place like this must be a fat sheep. Get him, boys, let's slaughter him. The tribulation cultivators wore savage grins, their eyes filled with cruelty. It was as if they could already see the scene of Chang'an dying by their hands. But in the next instant, an invisible blade slashed through the air. Swishing. One man's head flew from his shoulders on the spot, blood gushing from his neck like a fountain. The headless body staggered forward a few more steps before collapsing to the ground. Not good. The faces of the others changed drastically, and they scrambled to retreat. But before they could even get out of the courtyard, countless invisible blades materialized from the void around them, like an inescapable, deadly net that pierced through their bodies in an instant. A moment later, the men were reduced to a pile of minced flesh. With such meager cultivation, you dare to be tribulation cultivators. Chang'an's tone was cold. With a casual wave of his hand, he collected their storage pouches. To the side, Kun stared, dumbfounded. The entire turn of events had been completely beyond his expectations. He had originally thought Chang'an was doomed to die. But in the blink of an eye, those formidable tribulation cultivators were all dead. This is an array. Kun asked in disbelief. Chang'an glanced at him but didn't answer. Instead, he asked a question of his own. Elder Luo, you've been a talisman master for so many years. You must have a considerable fortune. Why didn't you ever think of buying an array to protect your home? Kun was a little ashamed. He had lived for decades, yet his sense of precaution was weaker than that of a young man like Chang'an. After all, King He Marketplace had a foundation establishment ancestor overseeing it, and had always been relatively safe. Even when tribulation cultivators had caused trouble before, it was always the low-level loose cultivators who ended up dead. I thought chaos would never come to King Marketplace. Kun swallowed a few healing elixirs and sighed. He struggled to his feet. He cupped his hands in a fist and palm salute toward Chang'an. Taoist Li, I will never forget the debt of you saving my life. In the past, he had relied on his status and seniority, and liked to put on the airs of an elder. But he knew very well that the Chang'an of today had long since outgrown the title of little friend. He had to be addressed as Taoist. Chang'an himself didn't care about the titles. Elder Luo, do you plan to stay here or return to your own residence? Well, Kun glanced at his own ruined residence. If Taoist Li doesn't mind, I will shamelessly impose and stay here. Staying here, he would be protected by the array. It was much safer than his own home. A short while later, Kun's injuries gradually stabilized. He thanked him again, then said apologetically, Taoist Li, I've spoken out of turn and with a loose tongue in the past, judging you unfairly. Please don't take it to heart. It's fine. Chang'an was very calm. He didn't care about any of that. This attitude of his made Kun feel even more ashamed. Then he began to explain why he liked hearing flattery from his juniors. When I was young, I was also a loose cultivator. To obtain a talismanic inheritance, I slaved away for an old talisman master, flattering him day in and day out, bowing and scraping, enduring his insults for over 10 years. Kun sighed. He had only obtained the talismanic inheritance after great difficulty. He had finally made it. Therefore, he also wanted to experience what it felt like to be flattered by others. In the end, I fell into a cliché. I can't compare to you, Taoist Li. Kun said sincerely. In the future, if you ever need help, Taoist Li, just say the word, and I will do everything in my power to assist you. I need help right now. Chang'an nodded slightly. Kun was taken aback by his words. What could I possibly do to help Chang'an right now? Elder Luo, I need some materials. They're quite rare and not easy to buy. As he spoke, Chang'an handed over a list of materials. On it was a small portion of the materials required to cultivate the demon blood body tempering skill. Some of these were rare spirit medicines and demon beast essence blood, which would be very difficult to gather in a short time. Your connections are more extensive than mine. Do you have a way to obtain these materials? Let me see. With a serious expression, Kun took the list. He had only just glanced at it when a look of shock appeared on his face. Taoist Li, these materials are all extremely precious and worth a fortune. I know. Li Chang'an was a bit resigned. The path of body refinement was truly difficult. Not only were the cultivation techniques rare, but even the required materials were hard to get. No wonder there were so few body-refining cultivators. He had only given Luo Kun a small portion of the list. If he had given him the full list, Luo Kun would probably have been too shocked to speak. To gather all these materials at once, perhaps only the Zhang family's treasure vault could fulfill that request. Luo Kun gave this answer after a long moment of thought. Li Chang'an was speechless. The Zhang family treasure vault is out of the question. Outsiders can't get in. Other than that, the only way is to slowly find people to trade with. Luo Kun mentioned another method. The wind-winged tiger essence blood on this list can be traded for from the beast master Wang Hu. As for the spirit medicine, the clear heart lotus, the spirit plant master Chu Mu should have some. And this exquisite fruit. Luo Kun explained in detail, listing off methods to obtain more than 10 of the materials. It had to be said. His network of contacts was indeed extensive. Whether it was ordinary loose cultivators or artisans with various skills, he knew quite a few. Taoist Li, if you're not in a hurry, I can act as a middleman and help you arrange the trades. Then I'll have to trouble you, Elder Luo. Li Chang'an breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he could get the materials, it was fine. He didn't mind if the process was a bit troublesome. He had plenty of time anyway. Just then, outside the courtyard, a dozen more tribulation cultivators suddenly charged in. More of them. A cold glint flashed in Li Chang'an's eyes. He discovered that these dozen or so tribulation cultivators were different from the previous ones. They seemed to have a plan, and each of them held a breaking charm. At the same time, his other puppet body, hidden in the shadows, spotted a familiar figure. Zheng Lingfeng. At this moment, Zheng Lingfeng was hiding not far away, his eyes filled with killing intent as he stared fixedly at Li Chang'an's residence. The dozen tribulation cultivators currently attacking Li Chang'an's residence were arranged by him. The Zhang family really loves colluding with tribulation cultivators. Li Chang'an snorted coldly, activating the array and using his talismans. In just a few moments, the dozen tribulation cultivators were turned into a pile of minced flesh. Not far away, Zheng Lingfeng's face twisted with unwillingness as he hastily retreated. I'll spare your life for now. Li Chang'an suppressed his killing intent and did not give chase. King Marketplace was, after all, the Zheng family's territory. Furthermore, Zheng Lingfeng was publicly ranked second among the younger generation. He surely had many life-saving treasures on him. Attacking him within the marketplace would be unwise. Just then, from the distant horizon, a world-shaking explosion suddenly rang out. Boom! Two terrifying auras collided, unleashing a power that made one's heart tremble with fear. Just watching from a distance was enough to fill many people with dread. A few moments later, everything returned to calm. The entire marketplace fell silent as many people looked up in that direction. Is the Foundation establishment battle over? Who won? The next instant, a triumphant laugh echoed through the night. Ha ha, Zheng the ghost, you've gotten old. The one laughing so heartily was none other than the Cao family's ancestor, Cao Xianxia. Hearing this voice, many disciples of the Zheng family looked anxious. Could it be, did our ancestor lose? Before long, two figures, one chasing the other, streaked across the night sky, heading straight for the marketplace. The person in the lead was the Zheng family's ancestor, Zheng Yuandao. At this moment his face was pale, his aura was in disarray, and his robes were torn in many places. Behind him, Cao Zhengxing was in hot pursuit. This scene made everyone understand. The Zheng family's ancestor had lost.